welcome back to episode 2 of the podcast. So today, first and foremost, we picked a name.
We did pick a name.
We picked a name this week. So this is the Pure Perspective Podcast, a little play on the office name, which is Pure Chiropractic, and the fact that we have a pretty pure perspective on how we think these kids should function and operate. And this is all about sharing that with you guys. So first episode, we talked about sleep. We had a lot of nice comments from people in the office who were able to check out the episode. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're a big deal. So go ahead and check us out. Like it, review it, all the things that people say on podcasts.
Subscribe.
Hit
the like button down below.
My kids are going to be so upset that I talk like all their YouTube friends. But so today's episode, we want to talk about behavior. When we started kind of structuring the episodes, there was a couple of things that were like, these are going to be high point topics that parents ask about all the time. So as we kind of do with each episode, what are we hearing in the office? What are parents telling us around the topic of behavior when it comes to their kids?
I mean, especially with one patient in particular, we're seeing a lot of like outbursts in school, outbursts at home, meltdowns, things like that. There is a 9-year-old that we see in the office now, and we've seen him since October, and then was having those continual outbursts, calls from home, being sent home from school. I meant calls from school to be sent home. But yeah, just a lot of dysregulation and not knowing how to handle emotions or handle situations with the right emotions. Now we're seeing that progress really well, and he's having less of those outbursts, less of those calls home. Yes, calls home. But just allowing nervous system to do its thing with our help and get those emotions regulated and seeing less of that stuff. Yeah.
And most impressively, it's been a recurring theme of a complaint that those parents have received. And we're watching this particular kid heal really, really quickly. Yeah. Like it's almost impressive to the three of us. We get to do this all day, so you become numb to it a little bit. But it always kind of shocks us the rate at which some nervous systems are begging for a solution. And when they get the first little bit of that positive progression, the wheels of change spin so rapidly for them. So, Dr. Jamie, anything to add there?
Well, and I think as a whole, I feel like parents don't come to us thinking that we can help with those behavioral struggles. So they're like, yeah, my kid's being sent home for being disruptive in class, or maybe hitting other kids, or having temper tantrums in class, or yelling at the teachers. We had one kid that was swearing at the teachers. And so we've got these parents that come to us and they just mention it in passing. And we're like, oh, wait, let's dive into this deeper, and we can share with them how their nervous system can regulate better and how that's going to then create less of that fight or flight response, and they'll perceive their environment more efficiently and more appropriately. And so that's when they'll start to navigate like, oh, I don't need to have a reaction like this because this isn't a fight or flight situation. And so to add on to the patient that Dr. Anna was talking about, mom had mentioned that he had not had a single call home from the school about his behavior since he started in October up until maybe 2 weeks ago. And it was a big transition week for them. And so they noticed that they had a lot more stressors, a lot more challenges. And so it certainly is, upsetting to see that did happen and that he did have a call home. But when it was going from weekly calls home to being 3 months in between a call home, we got to celebrate those wins.
Absolutely.
Like we've got to shout them out from the rooftops because that's incredible. And so, we see this daily. And we had another kid, she's 4, and parents came in and they were like, we saw stuff on your social media. We don't know if you can help us. We're getting calls home nearly every single day about her behavior, and she's 4. So what's going to happen as she grows older? And initially, I think they were like, yeah, the calls have lessened. They're not as frequent. But once we got through like that first month of care, non-existent calls. And then they missed a week of visits just from the way that our break fell for the Thanksgiving holiday. And mom came back and she was like, if we weren't believers before, we are now, because that was rough. Like that week without care was rough. And so they've just seen the changes that those neurologically focused adjustments can really give for her. And she's like a completely different kiddo now. And it's awesome to see. So
I think that's a category with kids where when things aren't right, it's probably the one that concerns the three of us the most, because it is probably the first thing that people start getting medicated for. When kids won't sit still in class, they're a problem for the teacher, they're a problem for the administration, they're a
Yeah.
problem for the parents.
Yeah.
And nobody has good
Students.
answers
Yeah.
for them, and it's not okay, and they're disruptive. So it's immediately, let's medicate them, let's just dampen their nervous system's response.
Yeah.
But it doesn't change the fact that that stress is sitting within the neurology and it needs to go somewhere.
Absolutely.
And so it's that we just talked about on that last episode. It is that snowball rolling down a hill where it picks up steam so rapidly and so quickly because we're not taking care of it in the first place. So
Yeah.
let's talk about the neurology a little bit for these kids with behavior. Similar to we talked about in the last episode, how do you get such a stressed out kid that can't sit still in school? Where does that come from in the nervous system?
I would say it's usually just a cascade of events like we talk about with the perfect storm. I know that we'll likely do a more in-depth video on that or conversation on that. But it can start all the way from mom's maternal stress. So just the pregnancy stress of dealing with labor, delivery, what that pregnancy might look like if there's complications or outcomes that we don't want to see, that's going to cause baby to have a more stressed out nervous system to begin with. And then maybe baby's born and we have a really traumatic birth process. And even when we have those incredible birth processes, we've got still some amount of dysfunction within the nervous system because it's just a very difficult time for both mom and baby. And then beyond that, we've got whether we've got antibiotics for ear infections or we've got vaccinations or we've got other things that are influencing the nervous system in a way that it is not meant to be able to handle. Now we see that pile up on one another. And so I know that I'm telling you guys as if you need to learn this
You're good.
stuff, but the biggest thing is that we'll see that those create those areas of interference or those roadblocks. And so when we talk to parents about these roadblocks, the more roadblocks a kid has, even if it's one roadblock, they can't perceive their environment effectively and appropriately. And so what they look at as my life is in danger. This is a fight or flight moment. I need to retaliate. Instead, when we clear out those areas of interference, they can perceive their environment as, oh, well, maybe this didn't go my way, or maybe I'm not happy with this outcome, but it doesn't require a reaction the way it was before. And especially like in the case of our 4-year-old friend at the office, she has no way of logically speaking that to us. She has no way of telling us, this made me really upset. And so I reacted this way. She's 4, and so we need to be able to give her that outcome or that chance at having a better outcome by removing those areas of interference, clearing out the nervous system of that interference so that the brain and body can send those signals appropriately. And then she's not going to see that friend at school took my toy and I'm going to spit on them, like we don't want to see that happen. And we're thankfully not seeing that happen any longer. But that's where we just have to instill these parents with the knowledge and the confidence in knowing that their child's not going to be like this for forever. We just need to get to the root cause of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and fortunately or unfortunately, we are blessed to be part of what we believe is a solution for these families, but we are seeing this more and more and more and more prevalent. It is a kind of recurring theme of phone calls and emails and DMs and the various ways that people will reach out to us, that parents are incredibly lost trying to manage these children. So we are pleased to be part of a solution. Any other cases in the office that are interesting right now that you guys can think of? Any that I'm not thinking of?
Not so much with behavior in a negative outcome, but we've got a friend in the office. I keep saying friend. I like
It's all right.
calling them
There are
that.
friends.
So we've got a friend. He is 4. Came to us, but for the opposite concern. It wasn't that he was overreacting in school or causing disruptive outbursts. It was that he was not social at all. Did not want to play with kids. Did not want to hang out. Did not even really want to like hang out with his brother and sister. He wanted to just be by himself all the time. And mom and dad knew something is going on with his social emotional cues, his ability to create friendships. He should be very interactive and he's not. And so dad did a ton of research about what we do, a ton of research on PX docs. And he called us and we talked for, close to 40 minutes, I think, before he came in with his son. And just seeing the fact that the school is letting them know, hey, he actually was sharing with kids and playing with blocks. And that is something we haven't seen all school year. That's incredible. And so not quite the disruptive outburst, but instead the opposite, where he was just not choosing to have any interaction at all.
Yeah.
And now he plays and talks and engages and shares and is just a completely different kiddo from when parents started back in the summer. So
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the opposite side, but the same thing. We get a ton of that where it's like, yeah, I know they're smart, but they don't focus. They can't sit in the classroom. They can't not be disrupted. And it's not because they don't care or they're not smart enough to be able to keep pace. It's that their nervous system literally doesn't have the ability to regulate into a state of calm to just be able to sit. I mean, if you really think about how messed up the nervous system has to get to the fact where you can't sit, you cannot just simply sit, which is why for the people who've been in the office that are listening, that's why we have you in a seated posture to do your insight scans. It's probably the most basic thing that we could ask your nervous system to do. And if it can't do that, or we see all this monumental stress in such a simple task, imagine when you try to run or lift or you're using extra brain power. It's all part of that heart rate variability and why we look at that fuel tank to go, what can you even keep pace with in a seated posture? The most basic thing.
Yeah.
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 One of the things Dr. Tony said when we were, beginning our journey with PX Docs was talking about calming the noise or shutting down the noise. And I think that's a big thing when we have those roadblocks or areas of interference. That ability to sit becomes non-existent because there's so much communication happening in the brain, so many signals going to the brain that are saying, let's go through our list of to-do lists or this or that or all of these other things. Let's talk about how my body feels. Let's think about how the socks feel on my feet. Let's think about what I have to do later or how my mom didn't let me have this for breakfast. There's so many different avenues that child could be trying to process those areas of information. The same happens with adults though too. When the noise can't just stop, that leads to those overreactive kids or those overreactive adults that are very irritable or impatient or just struggling to get through daily life without reacting negatively to the people they love the most. And so I think we see that even in grown-ups now too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think grown-ups especially are struggling with more of that like medicated side. So, I mean, I feel like back, 20 years ago, whenever they were growing up as kids, chiropractic was not a thing for them to go to whatsoever. And so now we're seeing a lot of adults that are on these medications for ADHD or just like depression, anxiety, all of that stuff, which can then just further into their lives build up more of that stress. And so now with us, starting this and being able to reach at the kid level before they get to that point, we can hopefully prevent a lot of that stuff from happening.
Well, we've always said in the office, even since we didn't know our direction, until a couple of years ago where we really figured out like this is where we need to be. But we always said we want to raise healthier generations. We don't want to have to fix sick adults. And not that we're not willing to do that and not that we don't take a lot of pride in that, but you can give a lot more life to a kid by figuring these things out at a younger age. And it's easier to do so.
Yeah.
The amount of stress a parent feels when they're fighting through this. And the reality is every day that goes by, we're a day farther away from being able to get to the solution faster. So it's a big part of it. Let's see. So like we talked about the neurology, the idea of the nervous system preferring disorganized chaos to organized peace. How does that play into these kids and behavioral challenges? Because we're probably going to see behavior spike a little bit when we start care. It's not just going to calm down right off the bat. So why is that the case? Why do we see that change?
I think a lot of times we are, starting from that comfortability of their nervous system being stuck in that stress and stuck in that disorganization. And then once we start kind of, if you think of your nervous system as like an onion, we're trying to break down those layers to build up the better ones. And so we go through a period of what's called neurodetox. It's a very challenging part of care, and we see parents struggle a lot with it, but it's
also the most rewarding.
yes,
once we
yes,
get through
because
it.
once we get through it, we see these massive like excelling kids that are not,
Hitting milestones.
screaming,
Yeah.
hiding or hitting and doing all these things, and they're hitting their milestones,
Yeah.
like you said.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not without stress, not without tears, not without a lot of love, a lot of hugs,
Yeah. It's
like
not
just a lot of
easy.
support, because we know, because we've watched it with all these cases, we know where we will get them. But boy, when a parent's in the middle of that, it is
Yeah.
really, really
Storm
hard
is
to see the
heavy.
other side
Yeah.
of that. And
Yeah.
it is, we liken the process to like the buffalo, if anyone's ever heard that story, that like we want to run into the storm, because the reality is those kids are going to go through it no matter what. And the longer you try and run away from it, you actually end up in it that much longer.
Yeah.
And so that is philosophically something that resonates with us, where it's like, let's just go, let's choose a path and go, put our foot in the
Push
ground and go,
forward. Yeah.
because we don't get anywhere by trying to run away from it. And certainly medication we already see that in our society is not the end all be all and the solution for these kids.
That's where our frequency comes from, especially like when we've got those kids that come in, and a lot of times parents aren't expecting maybe as high of a frequency as we're expecting or requesting of them to commit to. But like you said, if we're not just driving straight forward through that storm, we are going to spend double the amount of time, if not triple the amount of time, trying to repair that nervous system. It needs consistent, constant reinforcement that this is what the body needs. Let's remove this area of interference. And the more we do that, the better the body can be able to adapt to those changes and not go back to its old dysfunctional ways. Because, like you said, the disorganized chaos, it's only known that for the duration of that child's life. And so when you start to change things, it starts to wonder, what is going on? What is happening? Why is this all turning about? And so as soon as we start to remind it over and over that this is the change that needs to happen, it starts to finally feel more comfortable in that pattern.
Yep.
So yeah.
Well, I think that'll be it for today. Next, I was saying we could do so much time on this, and there's you guys will see there is kind of a trend to it's not hard to understand information. It's just mostly when we talk to these parents, it's new. They're not familiar with this. The concepts, I feel like we sometimes feel so redundant because we're kind of just saying the same stuff all day long. But when it's brand new to somebody, it's something they've never heard. It's something that we have to give them that guidance.
And especially in those beginning stages of care, you are getting so much information all at once on how your child is going to thrive through this experience. But like you said, that storm is heavy. And so you're going to need those reminders over and over. And we're happy to give those. But this is also a great resource in case you need it when we're not standing in front of you. You can watch this over again.
Reassurance.
Absolutely. So episode 3, we're going to go, I guess, back in time with these kids a little bit, because we're going to talk about a little bit more on the infancy stage. So we're going to talk colic and reflux and some of the challenges that presents for parents and for families. We will see you guys on the next one. If you're enjoying it, like it, subscribe,
click,
send us a DM. We love positive info.
Yeah, so we will be posting this on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple.
All of them.
Apple
Wherever I can figure out how to, whatever they're calling it.
I don't know what it's called. But if you have a friend, family member, loved one, anyone that you want to share this with, even if you just want to get it out to the masses, because you have no idea who could benefit from this information. And so we always try to say, like, even grandparents might have a grandchild that needs this information. So don't hesitate to share it.
Also, if there's questions, that's the other thing is we have an idea of where we want to go with episodes. But if there's stuff that you're like, I wonder what this has to do with my kid or my grandkid, send them our way. We would love to talk about all of those topics. We want this to be for our audience. So we will see you guys on the next one. Have an amazing rest of the day. Bye, guys.